The simulation theory, I'm glad you brought that up because you're also one of the people that believes in it.
I do.
You do. How do you define it? And what do you think it is? What do you think is going on?
So I'm trying to see technology we have today and project the trends forward. I did it with AI. Let's do it with virtual reality. We are at the point where we can create very believable, realistic virtual environments. Maybe the haptics are still not there, but in many ways, visually, sound-wise, it's getting there. Eventually, I think most people agree we'll have same resolution as our physics. We're also getting close to creating intelligent agents. Some people argue they are conscious already or will be conscious. If you just take those two technologies and you project it forward and you think they will be affordable one day, a normal person like me or you can run thousands, billions of simulations. Then those intelligent agents, possibly conscious ones, will most likely be in one of those virtual worlds, not in the real world. In fact, I can, again, retro-causally place you in one. I can commit right now to run billion simulations of this exact interview.
Mm-hmm.
So the chances are you're probably in one of those.
But is that logical? Because if this technology exists, and if we're dealing with superintelligence, so if we're dealing with AI and AI eventually achieves superintelligence, why would it want to create virtual reality for us and our consciousness to exist in? It seems like a tremendous waste of resources just to fascinate and confuse these territorial apes with nuclear weapons. Like, why would we do that?
So a few points. One, we don't know what resources are outside the simulation. This could be like a cell phone level of compute. It's not a big deal for them outside of our simulation. So we don't know if it's really expensive or trivial for them to run this.
Right.
Also, we don't know what they are doing this for. Is it entertainment? Is it scientific experimentation? Is it marketing? Maybe somebody managed to control them and trying to figure out what Starbucks coffee sells best, and they need to run Earth-size simulation to see what sells best. Maybe they're trying to figure out how to do AI research safely and make sure nobody creates dangerous superintelligence. So they're running many simulations of the most interesting moment ever. Think about this decade, right? It's not interesting like we invented fire or a wheel, kind of big invention, but not a meta-invention. We're about to invent intelligence and virtual worlds, godlike inventions. We're here. There's a good chance that's not just random.
Right, but isn't it also a good chance that it hasn't been done yet? And isn't it a good chance that what we're seeing now is that the potential for this to exist is inevitable, that there will one day, if you can develop a technology, and we most certainly will be able to, if you look at where we are right now in 2025 and you scale forward 50, 60 years, there will be one day a virtual simulation of this reality that's indistinguishable from reality. So how would we know if we're in it? This is the big question, right? But also, isn't it possible that it has to be invented one day, but hasn't yet?
It's also possible, but then we find ourselves in this very unique moment where it's not invented yet, but we're about to invent all this technology. It is a possibility, absolutely,
Right.
but just statistically, I think it's much less, and I'm trying to bring up this thought experiment with creating this moment on purpose in the future to pre-commitments.
Mm-hmm.
Half the people think it's the dumbest argument in the world. Half of them go, it's brilliant. Obviously, we are in one. So I'll let you decide.
Yeah. I feel like if virtual reality does exist, there has to be a moment where it doesn't exist and then it's invented. Why wouldn't we assume that we're in that moment, especially if we look at the scaling forward of technology from MS-DOS to, user interfaces of like Apple, and then what we're at now with quantum computing and these sort of discussions. Isn't it more obvious that we can trace back the beginning of these things, and we can see that we're in the process of this, that we're not in a simulation, we're in the process of eventually creating one?
So you zoomed out 30 years.
Yes.
Zoom out 15 billion years. You have a multiverse where this process took place billions of times. You are simulation within simulation, many levels over. And to you, even if this was a simulation of those 30 years, it would look exactly like that. You would see where it started. It wouldn't be magically showing up out of nowhere.
Right. So if you're playing the game, in the game you have Newton and Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, and
Well, at least you have memories of those things,
Right.
even if you started with preloaded memory state.
Right. You have Stalin, you have all these problematic human beings and all the different reasons why we've had to do certain things and initiate world conflicts. Then you've had the contrarians that talk and say, actually, that's not what happened. This is what really happened. And it makes it even more confusing and myopic. And then you get to the point where two people, allegedly, like you and I, are sitting across from each other on a table made out of wood, but maybe not really.
It would feel like wood to you either way.
Is it possible that that's just the nature of the universe itself?
There are some arguments about kind of self-sustaining simulations
Right.
where no one's running them externally, just the nature, but I honestly don't fully comprehend how that would happen.
Yeah, the
If you have-
holographic universe and the concepts of human consciousness has to interact with something for it to exist in the first place.
That's one. Also, if you have infinite universe, then everything possible happens anyway, but it's boring. I don't like this argument. What's the
Why don't
point?
you like, that's boring? Why is that
Everything
one?
happens. There is I give you a book which has every conceivable sentence in it, and would you read it? It's a lot of garbage you have to go through to find anything interesting.
Well, is it just that we're so limited cognitively? Because we do have a history, at least in this simulation, we do have a history of, there was a gentleman that, see if you could find this, they traced this guy, they found 9,000-year-old DNA, and they traced this 9,000-year-old DNA to a guy that's living right now. I believe it's in England.
I remember reading that.
Yeah, which is really fascinating. So 9,000 years ago, his ancestor lived, and so we have this limitation of our genetics. 9,000 years ago, wherever this guy lived, it's probably a hunter and gatherer, probably very limited language, very limited skills in terms of making shelter, and who knows if even he knew how to make fire. And then here, 9,000 DNA just turned human history on its head. Is this it? I don't think so.
It was interesting that he ended up living right next to the guy from 9th. He never moved. His family just stayed there for 9,000 years. That's
right.
awesome.
It's traced back to one individual man. I actually posted it on my Instagram story, Jamie. I'll find it here because it's here it is. 9,000-year-old skeleton in Somerset. This is it. So it's can you send an Instagram story? Not sure if you can.
It's still on there. I'll check it real quick. Sorry.
Why don't I find it on there? I don't know. Okay. Either way, point being, maybe it's just that we're so limited because we do have this, at least again in this simulation, we're so limited in our ability to even form concepts because we have these primitive brains that are the architecture of the human brain itself is just not capable of interfacing with the true nature of reality. So we give this primitive creature this sort of basic understanding, these blueprints of how the world really works, but it's really just a facsimile. And it's not it's not capable of understanding like when we look at quantum reality, when we look at just the basics of quantum mechanics and subatomic particles. It seems like magic, right? Things in superposition, they're both moving and not moving in the same time. They're quantumly attached. Like what? We have photons that are quantumly entangled. This doesn't even make sense to us, right? So is it that the universe itself is so complex, the reality of it, and that we're given this we're giving like an Atari framework
Yeah.
to this monkey. That's the gentleman right
This
there.
is an old story.
Wow.
Oh, is it really?
It's from '97.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it kind of makes sense as a simulation theory because all those special effects you talk about, so speed of light is just the speed at which your computer updates. Entanglement makes perfect sense if all of it goes through your processor, not directly from pixel to pixel. And rendering, there are quantum physics experiments which, if you observe things, they render different. It's
Right.
what we do in computer graphics.
Right.
So we see a lot of that. You brought up limitations of us as humans. We have terrible memory. I can remember 7 units of information maybe. We're kind of slow. So we call it artificial stupidity. We try to figure out those limits and program them into AI to see if it makes them safer. It also makes sense as an experiment to see if we as general intelligences can be better controlled with those limitations built in.
That's interesting. So, like some of the things that we have, like Dunbar's number, and these the inability to keep more than a certain number of people in your mind.
Absolutely. More generally, like, why can't you remember anything from prior generations? Why can't you just pass that memory? Kids are born speaking language. That would be such an advantage.
Right.
And we have instincts which are built that way. So we know evolution found a way to put it in, and it's computationally tractable. So there is no reason not to have that.
We certainly observe it in animals. Right.
Exactly.
Like especially dogs. Like they have instincts that are
But how cool would it be if you had complete
Language.
memory
Yeah.
of your parents?
right. Well, maybe that would be too traumatic, right? To have a complete memory of all of the things that they had gone through to get to the 21st century. Maybe that would be so overwhelming to you that you would never be able to progress because you would still be traumatized by, whatever that 9,000-year-old man went through.
I don't have complete memory of my existence. I vividly remember maybe 4% of my existence, very
Right.
little of my childhood, so you can apply same filtering, but remember useful things like how do you speak, how do you walk.
Right. But that's the point, maybe. Maybe like losing certain memories is actually beneficial because like one of the biggest problems that we have is PTSD, right? So we have especially people that have gone to war and people that have experienced like extreme violence. This is obviously a problem with moving forward as a human being. And so that would be beneficial for you to not have all of the past lives and all the genetic information that you have from all the 9,000 years of human beings existing and in complete total chaos.
I can make opposite argument. If you had 9,000 years of experience with wars and murder, it wouldn't be a big deal. You'd be like, yeah, another one.
Right, but then maybe you'd have a difficulty in having a clean slate and moving forward. Like if you look at like some of Pinker's work and some of these other people that have looked at the history of the human race, it is chaotic and violent as it seems to be today. Statistically speaking, this is the safest time ever to be alive. And maybe that's because over time we have recognized that these are problems, and even though we're slow to resolve these issues, we are resolving them in a way that's statistically viable.
You can then argue in the opposite direction. You can say it would help to forget everything other than the last year, and you'll always have that fresh restart with you.
But then you wouldn't have any lessons. You wouldn't have character
but you see how
development.
one of those has to make sense otherwise.
Yeah, right. But a certain amount of character development is probably important for you to develop discipline and the ability to, like, delayed gratitude, things
But
like that.
Multi-generational experience would certainly beat single point of experience.
Yeah.
More data is good. As we learned, the bitter lesson is more data is good.
Yeah, more data is good. But why am I so reluctant to accept the idea of the simulation is the real question. Like, what is it about it that makes me think it's almost like it's a throw your hands up in the air moment. Like, it's a simulation.
Yeah, you feel like it doesn't matter then. It's all
Right.
fake, so why do I care? Why should I try hard? Why should I worry about suffering of all those NPCs?
Duh. But that's not how I think about it, I think about it like there has to be a moment where it doesn't exist. Why wouldn't I assume that moment is now? And whenever, like when Elon thinks that, I talked to him about it. He's like, the chances of us not being in the simulation are in the billions.
Not being or being?
Excuse us, the chances of us
Being in the real world.
being in the real world are like billions to one.
Yeah. 1 to billions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. And he asked a very good question. He asked what's outside the simulation. That's the most interesting question one can ask. In one of the papers, I look at a technique in AI safety called AI boxing, where we put AIs in kind of virtual prison to study it, to make sure it's safe, to limit input-output to it. And the conclusion is basically if it's smart enough, it will eventually escape. It will break out of the box. So it's a good tool, it buys you time, but it's not a permanent solution. And we can take it to the next level. If it's smart enough, will it kind of go, oh, you're also in a virtual box, and either show us how to escape or fail to escape. Either way, either we know it's possible to contain superintelligence or we get access to the real information.
And so if it's impossible to contain superintelligence, and if there is a world that we can imagine where a simulation exists that's indistinguishable from reality, we're probably living in it.
Well, we don't know if it's actually the same as reality. It could be a completely weird kind of Simpsons-looking simulation. We're just assuming it's the same, right?
Well, here's the real question. Is there a reality? Has there ever been one?
It would make sense that there was a start to the process, but being specific about it is kind of hard philosophical, scientific problem.
Well, it's impossible, right?
In science, we study things about the moment of Big Bang, the properties of that moment. We don't know what caused it. Anything before it is obviously not accessible from within our universe, but there is some things you can learn. We can learn about if we're in a simulation that simulators don't care about your suffering. You can learn that they don't mind you dying. We can learn things just by observing simulation around us.
Well, here's the question about all that other stuff, like suffering and dying, and do those factors exist in order to motivate us to improve the conditions of the world that we're living in? Like, if we did not have evil, would we be motivated to be good? Do you think that these factors exist? Like I've talked about this before, but the way I think about the human race is if I was studying the human race from afar, if I was some person from another planet with no understanding of any of the entities on Earth, I would look at this one apex creature and I would say, what is this thing doing? Well, it makes better things. That's all it does. It just continually makes better things. That's its number one goal. It's different than any other planet and any other creature on the planet. Every other creature on the planet sort of exists within its ecosystem. It thrives. Maybe it's a predator. Maybe it's a prey. It does what it does in order to try to survive. But this thing makes stuff, and it keeps making better stuff all the time. But what's its ultimate purpose? Well, its ultimate purpose might be to make a better version of itself. Because if you just extrapolate, if you take what we're doing from, the first IBM computers to what we have today, where is that going? Well, it's going to clearly keep getting better. And what does that mean? It means artificial life. Are we just a bee making a beehive? Are we a caterpillar making a cocoon that eventually the electronic butterfly is going to fly out of? Like, it seems like if I wasn't completely connected to being a human being, I would assume that.
It's hard to define better. You're saying smarter? Would it be better if we didn't experience extreme states of suffering and pain? You can teach lessons with very mild pain. You don't have to burn children alive, right? Like, it's not a necessity for learning.
What do you mean by that? Well,
in this universe, we see extreme examples of suffering.
For sure.
If the goal was just to kind of motivate us, you could have much lower levels as the maximum.
Right, but if you want to really motivate people, you have to, like the only reason to create nuclear weapons is you're worried that other people are going to create nuclear weapons. Like, if you want to really motivate someone, you have to have evil tyrants in order to justify having this insane army filled with bombers and hypersonic missiles. Like if you really want progress, you have to be motivated.
I think at some point we stop fully understanding how bad things are. So let's say you have a pain scale from 0 to infinity. I think you should stop at 100. It doesn't have to be billion and trillion. It's not adding additional learning signal.
But can you apply that to the human race and culture and society? And
I think we basically compete with others in relative terms. I don't have to be someone who has trillions of dollars. I just need more money than you.
yeah, but that's just you're being a logical person. Like I don't think humans are very logical.
We're not, but we understand pain signal well at somewhat low levels. We don't have to max out on pain.
Right. We don't have to. But if you want to really stoke the fires and get things moving.
It seems that simulators agree with you, and that's exactly what they did. Thanks.
So here's the question. What's at the heart of the simulation? Like, is the universe simulated? Like, is the whole thing a simulation? Is there an actual living entity that constructed this? Or is this just something that is this the state of the universe itself? And we have misinterpreted what reality is.
For every option you mentioned, there is someone who wrote a paper about it. Is
Really?
it just your universe? Is it for all of us? Are we NPCs? Are there many? Is this the state of it? People try to figure out what's going on. Some of those make more sense than others, but you can't tell from inside what it is unless they tell you, and they can lie to you.
Who's they, though?
The simulators. If they decided to prove to you, you are in a simulation, let's run
Right.
experiments, even those would be like,
But
I
when
don't
you
know if
think
it's
about
advanced technology or...
When you think about it, if you believe in the simulation, when you think about it, what are the parameters that you think exist? Like, what do you think? How do you think this could possibly have been created?
So the examples I gave you with technology we already have, I think there is someone with access to very good virtual reality. They can create intelligent agents, and for whatever reason I cannot tell from inside, they running those experiments.
But is that the only possibility, or is the possibility that the actual nature of reality itself is just way more confusing than we've